Dallas might have saved their season to an extent today by agreeing to a restructured contract, or them and Zack Martin agreeing to a restructured contract that's going to pay him around $18 million this year and next year. He was initially going to make $13 million this year, $14 million next year, which would have put him just barely on the brink of the top 10 highest paid guards in the NFL. And Zack Martin, I think it's fair to say, worst case scenario, is the second best guard to Quentin Nelson. I think he's the best. I think I would still give Zack Martin the slight edge over Quentin Nelson, who's still a monster. We understand that. When this whole holdout was happening, I'm watching. I'm saying this has to be the easiest decision in the history of decisions, like you see on those commercials. Who is it that does that? The was it Capital One? By the way, Capital One does not sponsor this show, just for the record. But the easiest decision in the history of decisions, to quote them. Like, this is a 6-time All-Pro, a guy who is still in his prime. By the way, on an offensive line that is either aging, Tyron Smith, or not near as good as people give them credit for being. Keep in mind. And they play better at the end of the season. And you hope if you're a Cowboys fan, you can carry that into week 1 against the Giants and beyond that. The Dallas Cowboys offensive line. Was Zack Martin there? Zack is still, again, All-Pro last year. He's still a tremendous player. Second best player on the team to Micah Parsons. The Cowboys offensive line was bottom 5 in the NFL in pass block win rate. Translation, Dak Prescott and briefly Cooper Rush were running for their lives with this offensive line in front of them. Some of that is you had some rookies. You had some backups stepping in from time to time. You had guys come off injury, like Tyron Smith, Terrence Steele. Certainly you hope the continuity will be better this go around. But you had to bring Zack Martin back. I think it was, what's the kid's name? Ball, I think was his backup, who reports said was looking pretty rough at training camp. You absolutely had to bring Zack Martin back, especially after the fact you just paid Trayvon Diggs. Dak Prescott is reportedly working on a contract extension, which as a Dak guy just made me just sad. It's like, Dak, just play these last 2 years and get the heck out of there. Get out of there, Dak. Jeez, I've been saying this for years. But it looks like he's probably going to stay with the Dallas Cowboys long-term. It is what it is. CeeDee Lamb's going to want a contract extension. And most importantly, Micah Parsons is going to want a big old slice, to use a Jerry Jones quote, a big old slice of that pie. He's going to get a big one. I mean, Nick Bosa is eventually, surely to goodness, going to get a deal with the 49ers at some point. So what's Micah going to get when he comes down the pipeline a year from now, assuming he has another great year, stays healthy, is in the Defensive Player of the Year running once again? It's a lot of mouths to feed. Again, I would have rather paid CeeDee Lamb, obviously got a deal done with Dak, kept Zack Martin. Again, this restructure, I think, is a great meet in the middle, right? It wasn't, they didn't agree to a long-term extension, which would have carried Zack Martin well into his 30s. He gets the pay raise that he wanted, but also Dallas doesn't have to necessarily give him the crazy long-term security that he may not have wanted. But you have to pay Micah Parsons. That's a given. I think you kind of have to pay CeeDee Lamb, given where the wide receiver core is today. And you certainly have to pay Dak Prescott, because you can go nowhere in this league if you don't have, at a bare minimum, a good quarterback. I think Dak is on the fringe of great. He's the 8th best quarterback in the league, in my opinion. Trayvon's the guy I would have said, I can let you walk. Of those guys, Trayvon's the guy. He's the least important of those 4, or those 5 if you include Zack Martin. But I was thinking, though, today about Dallas, or over the weekend. Not while I was seeing Luke Bryan, by the way. Shout out to Luke Bryan. I hate that he's a Georgia fan, though. That's my only beef with him. I was thinking about Dallas, and it kind of just hit me. I have a feeling that this season isn't going to look like the last 2, where Dallas wins 12 games. They have a great offense. You know, Mike McCarthy is sort of like in and out of the hot seat. They have a couple losses where the whole country's freaking out because it's the Cowboys. They lost that big Fox game to Philadelphia, or they lost the Sunday night game to the 49ers, and the sky is falling. And then they win a playoff game, losing the divisional round. I have a feeling for Dallas, this year's either going to be, by their standards, a resounding success or a colossal failure. And by failure, I'm not meaning winning 12 games, getting to the playoffs, even winning a playoff game like they did a year ago. I'm talking 9-8. You're in the playoff hunt, kind of, but you end up losing. Like, say you lose to Washington at the end of the year, or you lose that game to Detroit, who they play in Week 17. I think Detroit's going to the NFC Championship game. You could have a situation like that. I feel like for a lot of guys in Dallas, this is kind of make or break. It probably shouldn't be, because frankly put, I don't think the roster can stack up next to Philadelphia and San Francisco. But on the bright side of things, you look at Dak Prescott, you say, dang, last year Dak was healthy. He was incredible. 4,500 yards, 37 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. Again, we talk about the interception problem with Dak, which I've always said that what you saw last year, that's not Dak. 2021 is what you saw with Dak. Now, again, wide receiving core, Amari Cooper, Cedric Wilson no longer on the team, but CeeDee Lamb has gotten better as a receiver. Brandon Cooks, knock on wood for him, for however long you have him healthy, he can be productive for you. Michael Gallup should be healthy this go around. The receiving core certainly isn't anything to just go nuts about, but it is good. Like, it's a good receiving core. Tight end situation, a little dicey. It's not exactly what they have in Philly or San Francisco. Again, those are the teams in Detroit you're going to have to go through. I don't know. It's just, we have these expectations for the Cowboys year in and year out, and I've historically been a guy, I'll believe it when I see it. Like, I'll believe this team can have any sort of success, get to a conference championship game when I see it. But this feels like NFC title game for Dallas or missing the playoffs. I actually don't think there's an in-between, because you hear the Cowboys reporters, and you always every year you're like, I'm not throwing off the reporters, by the way, they do a great job. But you hear every year Jerry Jones doing a State of the Union speech for the Cowboys, and this is the most talented team we've had since the 90s, and we're going to go on this run. And I'll tell you, Mike McCarthy is the second coming of Landry, and Dak's the second coming of Roger Staubach, and here we go. And then they tend to fall flat in their face in the playoffs. You're hearing more against Jerry's had some quotes from here to there where it's like, okay, here goes Jerry again. But Jerry seems a little more subdued. And frankly, I don't think that's just because he all of a sudden dropped his expectations. I think it's because of the fact Jerry's like, I just turned 80 not too long ago. I don't have a whole lot longer left here. I have got to win a Super Bowl. And it's sort of, if this is that, maybe just maybe Jerry came to some sort of realization. Like, I'll give the BD the occasional quote, because that's what I'm here for. I am Jerry Jones. But also, if we lose this year, if we don't accomplish what I hope we can, it's not because I stepped in the way or put my foot in my mouth or caused distractions that, frankly, there didn't need to be. There seems to be a different vibe. And it's almost like okay, this is put up or shut up time. This isn't, okay, here we go. We're going to win the Super Bowl this year. We're going to play off the momentum of last year. It's like, okay, do it, or, what did Yoda say in The Empire Strikes Back? Do or do not. There is no try. That was my best Yoda. I'm sorry. That was terrible. But that's what he said, right? It's sort of, are you going to do it or not? Are you going to get to a conference title game, or are you going to fall flat in your face in the wild card divisional round? I don't know. I feel I'm probably going to end up picking Dallas to either go 9-8, maybe even 8-9, or like 13-4 and get to the conference title game. Like, that's what I think Dak's capable of getting them there, given the state of the NFC. But also, again, I can't put a finger. You can usually tell the vibe of organizations like Washington, and you had that whole controversy with Ron Rivera but putting Eric Bieniemy in a really bad spot, kind of publicly. I don't even know if he meant to diss him, but he certainly sounded like he dissed in the media. Talking about, he's too hard on the players. He yells at players. It's like, yeah, he's a football coach. Of course he yells at players. Now, if he disrespects them, or if he, he's like going all Urban Meyer kicking kickers, that's a whole different thing. But you sort of sense the vibe, like around the Niners, for example. It's, we can win the Super Bowl. Just pray to God our quarterback stays healthy. Philadelphia, it's, we're going to get revenge off of last year. We're going to win it this year. Kansas City, back-to-back. Cincinnati, if Burrow's healthy, we're going to get back at Kansas City like we did a couple of years ago. Buffalo, can Josh Allen bounce back? You sort of get the vibe around these organizations, certainly this time of year. For Dallas, it is really this simple. Put up or shut up. Actually, you know what? Put that aside, because I've used that term to describe the Blazers and Heat sort of situation with Damian Lillard. Does he move on or not to Miami? It sort of seems like a formality at this point, but you have this It does seem like it's going to end anytime soon. We'll see. But again, I'm going to call this the Yoda season because that's my favorite Yoda. Yoda has so many great quotes, but that's my favorite quote. Do or do not. There is no try. I'll try and patch up the impression in the future. Yeah, that's what I'm rolling with. This is the Yoda season for the Cowboys. Do or do not. That's what I feel like it is for the Cowboys. Anything in between, it's sort of like we're back to square one. I don't know. It's a weird season for Dallas. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.